The company's founding party is only for spouses and kids. If you're bringing your mom, just go home.
As soon as my boss, John, saw me, he started grinning. Then he began mocking my wife, Michelle, who is 15 years older than me.
So, this must be Sean's mother. She didn't even bother to fix her hair or put on proper makeup.
Michelle is my wife. How many times do I have to tell you that? I couldn't help but raise my voice. The room fell completely silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. Still fuming with anger as I left the venue, I immediately received a phone call.
Where are you? Get back here now.
Behind John's panicked voice, I heard a familiar one. My name is Sean Williams. I'm 30 years old. I work as a medical equipment engineer. I strive to keep up with new information daily to maintain my long-term position at this company. I don't have children, but I'm content with my fulfilling life with my wife, Michelle. There's a reason I cherish Michelle so much. When I was in 4th grade, I lost both of my parents in an unexpected accident. Because of this, I never want to lose my family again, so I treasure them more than anything. As a child, I was shocked and devastated by the sudden news, but it was my grandfather who took me in and raised me. He immediately had me live with him and took care of me in many ways. However, I was a timid child, and after losing my parents, I became even more prone to tears. Other kids found it amusing and would tease and mock me, trying to make me cry on purpose. Seeing that I couldn't even attend school anymore, my grandfather took time off work to meet with the principal and my teacher. Thanks to my grandfather's firm protest, the children were reprimanded, and I was finally able to attend school without fear.
Thank you, Grandpa.
I said in a small voice, and he gently smiled and suggested I try karate.
I'm not forcing you, but it's good to build your strength. If your body gets stronger, so will your spirit. How about giving it a try?
Grandpa encouraged karate, not for fighting, but for my mental growth. I understood that I couldn't let the teasing go on forever, and that I couldn't always rely on Grandpa. So I joined a karate training school and practiced every day. By the time I entered high school, I had become the team captain of the karate club. During practice matches, Grandpa would find time from his busy schedule to come and cheer for me. I have fond memories of him clapping his hands in joy when I won the district tournament. Grandpa worked harder than anyone. Despite his busy schedule, he always attended my school events and karate matches. I will always look up to him. Over time, Grandpa became the person I respected most in the world. There's another person who supported me just as much as Grandpa. That person is my wife, Michelle, who lived near my grandfather's house. Michelle is 15 years older than me and was already working when I first met her. She has a caring nature and would often comfort me when I cried as a child.
If you cry, they might tease you more. But I think your kind nature is a strength, so let's try to stay positive.
She would say, comforting me and finding good things to praise. Michelle's constant concern for me made me happy. But after some time, Michelle had to leave for a distant overseas job. She decided to join an international aid organization as a doctor, focusing on developing countries. Michelle's first assignment was in Central Africa. There, vaccines for infectious diseases were scarce, and many people suffered from diseases that could be easily treated in the US. The medical team's mission was to vaccinate the residents in the town center. Michelle wrote to me about her busy days. In that country, the roads were unpaved, and transporting vaccines often faced temperature control issues. Even if they managed to get the vaccines, unstable electricity in the town could ruin them. Communication with local drivers was also challenging due to language barriers, sometimes leading to disputes. But when the mission was completed, Michelle wrote about feeling a great sense of accomplishment and happy feelings. As I learned about her daily life with fellow doctors, staff, and the locals, I grew to respect Michelle's work even more. And influenced by her hard work, I also became motivated to study hard. The reason I became a medical equipment engineer has a lot to do with Michelle. I wanted to contribute to the medical field, just like her, so I joined a medical equipment company. Then, when Michelle returned home after her overseas assignment, I confessed my feelings to her. During the years of exchanging letters, Michelle had somewhat sensed my feelings. We naturally started having meals together, and our relationship began. I had never dated anyone before, so I was worried about whether I could maintain a relationship with her. But Michelle seemed more concerned about the age difference. To me, the age difference doesn't matter. I've admired you since I was a kid. I can't imagine spending my life with anyone else but you. Please marry me. I would tell her this every chance I got, and Michelle would smile happily. I'm happy to be with you, Sean. If you're okay with me, let's get married. She was delighted, and after 3 years of expressing my feelings, we finally got married. I married the love of my life, Michelle, but my boss, John, always made fun of our relationship. John is younger than me, but he's already a manager, supposedly due to his connections in the company's upper management. He often mocked the fact that Michelle is 15 years older than me and insulted her in our conversations to get a laugh. John started making snide comments about Michelle shortly after we met. That day was John's welcome party, as he had just transferred as a new manager, and most of the employees had gathered for him. At first, I thought John was a pleasant young man, but as he got drunk, he began to act suspiciously, and soon his attention turned to me.
Hey Sean, you said you're married, right? Show me a picture of your wife.
Sure, but don't expect her to be as stunning as your wife, John. I prefaced this because, once drunk, John would repeatedly boast about how beautiful his newlywed wife was. He would brag that she won the beauty pageant at her university and worked as a reader model. I'd rather go home and see my wife than stay at this sausage fest, he would say, so I responded in kind. But when I showed him Michelle's picture, John almost spit out his drink, laughing hysterically.
This is your wife. She's so tanned and looks more like an old lady than a wife. Isn't she about the same age as your mom?
John then started passing my photo around to others.
He says this is Sean's mom. She's so tanned and has a ton of spots and wrinkles.
He laughed alone, mocking Michelle. It's true, Michelle had spent a lot of time outdoors interacting with locals, getting tanned from the sun. Unlike women in the US, she didn't wear sunscreen every day, and I didn't find her healthy complexion and age-appropriate skin embarrassing. But being ridiculed for Michelle's appearance made me feel bad. The employees who saw the photo would glance at me with sympathetic smiles. They couldn't say anything strong to John, who would soon be their boss. I felt a mix of frustration towards John and guilt for making my coworkers uncomfortable. From that day on, John would make snide remarks about Michelle whenever he saw me. As soon as I showed up at work, John would grin and talk to me.
Good morning. It's great you're here early again. Oh, I get it. Your house is really uncomfortable with an old lady like your wife around, isn't it?
I was at a loss for words, not knowing how to respond. Seeing my troubled expression, John laughed even more.
I get not wanting to be at home, but don't stay late at work just to avoid your wife.
He would laugh loudly and walk away. The job is fulfilling, but by the time I get to my desk, John's behavior has completely drained my motivation. Every time John spoke to me at work, my spirits dropped. One day, while I was working, I received a message that John wanted to see me. Wondering what it could be about, I went to him and saw that familiar smirk on his face. A bad feeling washed over me.
We're going to start displaying family photos on our desks from now on.
As he said this, John handed me a photo. It showed a young, beautiful woman smiling with a baby.
This is my wife and child. I think it came out well, so I want to display it.
So, this is your wife and child, John? She's beautiful, and your child looks bright and cute. Though I couldn't say it aloud, I thought John was lucky to have such a stunning wife. When I complimented him, John proudly crossed his arms.
Right? You can put it on your desk if you want.
Huh? Why would I put a photo of John's family on my desk? I couldn't understand his point, so I gave a vague response. He then said something unbelievable with a malicious grin.
If you put up a photo of your older wife, it won't motivate you, right? To boost your work efficiency, you should put up a photo of my beautiful wife instead.
I've never been angrier at John than at that moment. John, could you please take back what you just said?
What? I didn't say anything wrong. Looking at a young beauty is better for your eyes than an old hag. You shouldn't have married an older woman.
John's continued insults towards me and Michelle made my hands shake with anger. If I kept looking at him, I wouldn't be able to control my anger. Forcing myself to move, I went back to my desk without saying another word. But John's persistent taunts didn't stop. No matter how much I tried to avoid him, he would seek me out and hurl insults at me and Michelle. The nearby employees gave me pitying looks, but no one dared to stand up to John. They likely feared that if they confronted him, they might be his next target due to his connections with upper management. From that day on, I buried myself in work to escape John's verbal abuse. But I felt the growing discomfort of a once loved workplace. Though John's harassment continued, I gradually learned to tune out his remarks. By focusing on not engaging with him, the frustration I felt from his morning and break time provocations lessened. As I slowly regained some peace of mind, John seemed less amused. One day, John asked me about the company's upcoming anniversary party.
Sean, is your wife coming to the company's anniversary party next weekend?
The party was to celebrate the company's 50th anniversary and introduce the next CEO, so it was a big event. Spouses and children were allowed to attend. I love this company and am committed to helping it grow, but bringing Michelle was another matter. Considering my past interactions with John, I especially didn't want to bring her if he was attending. John's interest in whether Michelle was coming was likely just curiosity. If he met her, he would surely say something hurtful. I didn't want to subject Michelle to such an environment. I plan to attend alone. I'll let my wife relax at home.
What? You always talk about how much you love your wife, but you can't show her off in public. You act all high and mighty, but in the end, you're too embarrassed to introduce her to us.
John's words shook me.
If your partner is truly important to you, at least ask her opinion.
All right, I'll talk to my wife. When I got home and mentioned the anniversary party, Michelle was genuinely happy.
I'll definitely go with you, Sean. I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Seeing Michelle's unexpected enthusiasm, I felt relieved. We decided to attend the event together and looked forward to it. On the day of the anniversary party, Michelle rented a classy dress and got ready. It was a beautiful dress that suited her well, but years of living abroad had taken a slight toll on her hair and skin. So, she kept her hair and makeup simple, and we headed to the Grand Hotel venue. The venue, decorated with lavish flowers for the 50th anniversary, was packed with attendees. Michelle initially carried herself confidently, but she soon started to feel self-conscious.
Do I look strange? I feel like people are staring at me.
You look wonderful, Michelle. She smiled at my words, but I could tell she was still a bit uneasy. At that moment, a familiar voice rang out behind me, making me tense up.
Sean, you made it. Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Kathy. Isn't she beautiful?
John's wife, Kathy, a magazine model, was indeed the most beautiful woman in the room. After greeting them, I introduced Michelle. I'm always grateful for John's help. This is my wife, Michelle.
Oh, so you're Sean's mother?
John butted in as I was speaking. He intentionally spoke loudly, causing the surrounding employees to start paying attention to us. No, she's my wife, Michelle. I've mentioned this before, John. I emphasized my words, but John, displeased by my defiance, made an outrageous comment.
Your wife? I'm sorry. I just couldn't believe someone around 50 could be your wife.
Michelle's smile stiffened, and she stood frozen. I placed my hand on her back, ready to leave, but John spoke up again.
Her hair is a mess, and she barely put on any makeup. She must have the soul of an old lady. No wonder I mistook her for your mother.
Michelle covered her face and looked down, finally breaking under the harsh words. I couldn't take it anymore and grabbed Michelle's arm to leave. But John wouldn't let us go and shouted even louder.
This party is only for spouses and kids. If you're bringing your mom, just leave.
Michelle is my wife. How many times do I have to say it? I couldn't help but raise my voice. The room fell silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. I was doing my best to control my anger, aware of my heavy breathing. Michelle, unable to lift her head, had her pride wounded and her eyes red with embarrassment. John, shocked by my outburst, stood with his mouth open. But his face soon turned red with anger, and he snapped at me in a low voice.
Who do you think you're talking to? I've got connections at the company. If you have a problem with me, leave.
I don't need to be told. I don't want to stay in such a horrible place for another second. Excuse me. Still fuming, I turned my back on the venue. As I walked away, John, unable to contain himself, began to laugh loudly. but I supported Michelle and left without looking back. He can laugh all he wants for now. He won't be laughing soon. Once in the hotel's lounge with a cup of coffee, I started to calm down. As I savored the rich aroma of the hot coffee, I apologized to Michelle. I'm sorry for putting you through that. I shouldn't have let you meet such a boss.
It's not your fault, Sean. I wanted to go.
Michelle, trying to hold back tears, rubbed her reddened eyes. At that moment, my phone started ringing. As expected, it was John, his voice shaking with panic.
Where are you? Get back here now.
In the background, I heard a familiar voice addressing John.
So what's going on here? Where's the next president? We can't start the party without him.
Well, George, there was a bit of a mix-up.
In our company, George, who is the chairman, is actually my grandfather. And the person to be introduced as the next president at today's anniversary party is me. My grandfather founded this company, and my parents were running it as president before they tragically passed away. My grandfather then took over as chairman and president, leading the company until now. Only a few top executives knew this, and I kept it a secret because I didn't want to be seen as having joined through connections. I worked hard, gaining knowledge and experience, and was judged to have grown enough to be the next president. I accepted the offer and prepared for today. On the other end of the call, John continued his desperate explanations. Meanwhile, I received a new message from my grandfather, instructing me to return to the venue immediately. Following his words, I took Michelle back to the venue. Inside, John was trembling under my grandfather's glare.
So, you're John. It seems you've said quite a lot to my grandson's wife.
Well, it was a little misunderstanding. Just some guy talk, right, Sean?
As soon as I appeared, John turned to me with a pleading smile.
We always talk like this, right? Tell him that.
We do indeed have such conversations. John sighed with relief. But his face turned pale as I continued. But John's behavior towards my wife, Michelle, has been utterly unacceptable. His comments have been making me uncomfortable for a long time. You can ask the other employees to confirm this. When I firmly stated this, John, sweating profusely, started complaining to me.
Hey, what are you talking about? It was just some harmless guy talk, right? Don't be so uptight.
My grandfather listened quietly to John's excuses for a while, but finally shook his head slowly.
You seem to lack proper communication skills. Having someone like you in a managerial position is a compliance issue. We can't overlook this as a company.
The executives gathered nearby exchanged glances and started murmuring among themselves. Seeing this, John grew even more frantic in his attempts to explain.
I apologize if I caused any offense. I was just speaking my mind. I didn't mean any harm.
If there was no malice, then those words must reflect your true feelings. That makes you even less trustworthy.
John, chastised by my grandfather, finally slumped in defeat. That's when Kathy, John's wife, surprisingly stepped in and addressed John, who was still mumbling excuses.
Stop talking. I'm really disappointed in you.
Kathy!
John, caught off guard, stared at his wife with his mouth agape. But Kathy, her beautiful face twisted in anger, began to scold him harshly.
What right do you have to insult that woman? Don't you understand how hurtful your words are?
Why are you angry? You're my beautiful, lovely wife.
John tried to placate her, but it only fueled her anger.
You always praise my looks, but never care about who I am inside. I don't want someone who mocks others to be the father of my child. I want a divorce.
What, Kathy?
Desperately, John tried to stop her, but she greeted us and walked away, her heels clicking sharply. Next, I quietly spoke to John, who was staring blankly at Kathy's retreating figure. Your wife is truly beautiful and remarkable. She maintains her beauty through effort and care. John, still in shock, could only stare blankly at me. But I believe the most beautiful people are those with a kind heart. Unlike in America, many people in foreign countries still struggle with basic needs. There are people without homes, those who drink dirty water, and children forced into labor without education. Michelle has spent years helping these people, using her time and energy. I'm attracted to people like that. To me, she's more beautiful than any actress. Michelle can share in others' happiness and laugh with them, which is why I chose her as my wife. John couldn't respond and just hung his head. My grandfather then added,
You boasted about your connections in the company, but our company has a strict no nepotism policy. Explain yourself.
John finally covered his face and sank to the floor. Later, as the scheduled time approached, I took the stage. Thank you all for waiting. As I looked around the room and greeted everyone, applause filled the room. Among the smiling faces were Michelle, my grandfather, colleagues, and subordinates, all welcoming me as the new president. Everyone was warm and supportive, except for John, who had disappeared during the ceremony. The day after the party, John didn't show up at the office. Apparently, he called in sick, but whether he was truly ill was uncertain. The following week, an investigative committee was formed, and they conducted interviews in my department. As a result, it became clear that John had been engaging in selfish behavior all along. It turned out that John had been harassing many of his subordinates, just as he had done to me. Moreover, it was revealed that he had joined the company and attained his position through connections, despite having no real accomplishments. Finally, he was expelled from the company. The person who brought John into the company was a 63-year-old executive. Apparently, he had been indebted to John's father when he was younger and was pressured into hiring John as a form of repayment. The executive also had to take responsibility and left the company, despite being close to retirement. Though it was framed as a voluntary resignation, it was essentially a forced dismissal. I didn't intend to drive anyone to resign, so I felt somewhat sorry, but it was ultimately due to their own actions. I can only hope that they learn from this failure in their next endeavors. With John gone, the employees, now united under a new boss, were more enthusiastic about their work. My former colleagues smiled as they told me that without the stress, everyone was more motivated and performance had improved. As for me, I'm working hard every day to become a reliable leader as the new president. Michelle is now using her overseas experience at a large local hospital. Though we're both busy, seeing Michelle working with the same lively smile as when she was young gives me the energy and motivation I need. Thank you for always being by my side, Michelle.
I'm the one who should be grateful, Sean. You used to cry so much, and now you protect me. I really rely on you, my dear husband.
Michelle's words warm my heart. I once lost my family, but now I've managed to protect my own. Holding Michelle's hand, I told her once more that I love her. Thanks to my grandfather and Michelle, who have supported me throughout my life, I now stand here as the new president. For the employees who work for the company, I aim to be a president who considers others' feelings. I want to see the company's growth as my happiness, just like the happiness of our customers and employees. With this wish in mind, I looked up at the sky spreading outside the window.